Hello everyone, ladies and gentlemen, kids of all ages. My name is Avi, and welcome to episode 9 of Infinite Alchemy. Last time we made a pump jack, got our first bits of crude oil, made the distillation tower, and started distilling it into diesel, lubricant, and gasoline. This time, we have basically one goal in mind. I want to make a diesel generator. Before that, though, we have a bit of a strange introduction ahead of us. Simply put, I wanted to do a lot of building at the start of this episode, and as for that, that means that I'm not going to be talking for much longer. I'm going to just let it do its thing. I'm going to be building out the farm area, and I'm also going to be building out the sky platform. And then we'll start discussing our plans from there. So enjoy! As we finally come back and look over all that we've added, I gotta say that I'm still kinda not so sure about the sky platform. I think once I get a tool that'll allow me to make circles better, I'll probably remake it, but nonetheless, it's nice to have a big green platform, and the more farming space is definitely helpful. In the meantime, I also made conduit binder for the first time, which is a good use of that bitumen that we had, and turning that into the actual proper binder just takes covering it in aluminum brass. This allowed me to make dedicated storage for diesel lubricant and gasoline from the distillation tower, so I could run it more effectively. The routing is a bit of a nightmare with just the regular fluid conduits, but it's significantly better than the fluid transfer nodes because it's not as rate limited. That being said, that's really the only thing I got accomplished on the offside while doing the building montage, so it is time to devote our attention solely and specifically towards more power. The diesel generator is a multi-block from Immersive Engineering that generates a constant stream of 4,096 RF a tick. For reference, our current Connect dynamos generate about 10 a tick. It runs at a constant consumption rate depending on the fluid. And for that, the quest book is actually wrong about a lot of the information when it comes to diesel generators. One of the most obvious things here is that it will actually stop running if its power output is full without a redstone signal. Either case, we want it, and there's a couple of steps we gotta make for it. For one thing, I will set up another coke oven so that I can make coal coke by putting cactus charcoal through a coke oven. This coke dust that we will get eventually can be used to make HOP graphite, which is required for the generator blocks. To make HOP graphite, we need an industrial squeezer, so I need to make yet another multi-block that way. Fortunately, the industrial squeezer is actually really cheap, all things considered, so that gets rounded out in just a couple of minutes. As for its uses, there are kind of none that we're going to be using it for other than HOP graphite at this moment. We can use it to make biodiesel, but we aren't going to be using biodiesel, so I couldn't find anything specifically content tweaker related that required it, so this is basically going to be used for making HOP graphite and probably only a couple dozen times at best. To make HOP graphite, we have to smelt down HOP graphite dust, and to get HOP graphite dust, we have to squeeze coal coke dust. The only way to get coal coke dust at this point is actually to either put it through an immersive engineering crusher, which would take like 200 more steel and be really annoying, or use creosoleum to make it, so you can guess which option I went for. Once again, HOP graphite is required for the radiator blocks, of which we'll need 9 of them. Speaking of which, let's talk about the diesel generator and its actual requirements. It's a bit hefty. It takes 9 of the previously mentioned radiator blocks, 4 generator blocks, 14 heavy engineering blocks, some steel scaffolding, and some fluid pipes. It's really the first 3 that are going to be the problem. Heavy engineering blocks are not cheap, and neither are the other 2. That being said, I did tackle the engineering blocks first, simply because I thought it would take probably the most raw resources, just considering the amount of steel, the amount of lead and osmium that were required for the gears and such. To help with that, I decided to make a new drawer for silver bell saplings so that I could more easily get silverwood planks to get into silver ore. As an aside, I made a marble cobblestone module around this time, which uses ash solution and witch water to make it. Marble, using the ore altars, can be turned into aluminum ore, and making duraluminum takes a lot of aluminum, so I wanted to have a more safer supply of it, which is why I did such. Now, if you do the math on 14 heavy engineering blocks, you're going to realize that takes 7 crafts, which would be 14 steel mechanical components, which I'm doing right here, 28 steel plates, and 7 of each of the gears. Now, if you're smart, you'd realize that, for some reason, I was smoking something that day, and I decided to make 14 of each of the gears, which is not the correct amount. However, in a very fortunate Ode levels foreshadowing event on my part, I ended up basically using almost all of the extra lesbium, electrum, and duraluminum gears that I made for various other crafts during this process. So I'm going to say that it was totally intentional to overcraft my gears significantly. Either way, that's the heavy engineering blocks made. That's the first of the really hard components already finished. Let's get those generator blocks. Well, I mean, I can be pompous and posture that much, but I decided to tackle the easiest stuff first, and get the fluid pipes and get the steel scaffolding and redstone engineering blocks also required for it, but weren't even remotely difficult. The generator blocks aren't terrible. Easily the hardest part is going to be the kinetic dynamos. The 250C capacitors I handle first, though. The kinetic dynamos are probably just the hardest because of the refined circuits that they take. The rest of it is fine, if a little annoying. With the algal string, though, making refined circuits is actually kind of nice because the amount of gold that it takes is really little. There's then our generator blocks, which I kind of sped through a lot of it, but we already had the gears because of my total foresight. The only thing left is the radiator blocks, which is really, really annoying. It takes 8 coal coke to make 1 HOP graphite dust. And, of course, each coal coke is 1 cactus charcoal, so it's a lot of cactus that's required for it. And in the end, you need 18 HOP graphite for all of the generator blocks. However, since you have to craft them 2 at a time, you need to make 20 of it, which is 160 coal coke. So, pretty annoyingly expensive. Despite all my complaining, it goes off without much of a hitch, because it really is just the cost of the coal coke. And with that, that is actually everything for the diesel generator made. I decided to actually upgrade a LV capacitor to an HV one just to store the power from it. An HV capacitor has 400 times the power storage of an LV one as well, which is very nice and gonna help a lot. Alright, so let's talk about the diesel generator. For one thing, it's gonna be a massive buff to power. I've been kind of constantly struggling with power, and it's been very hard running the blast furnace at constant capacity, and also the high oven at the same time, and then the metal press, and it just wouldn't ever work. Even with the 2 water wheel setups that I had, it was still kind of too much for it. So a diesel generator that can output maybe about 20 times what I was making before is gonna help a little bit. But also, a lot of the information in the quest book is surprisingly wrong about it. I mentioned previously that it does in fact automatically stop running if it is full, if its power output is full. But also a really weird thing is that in the quest book it says that gasoline can be used as fuel for it. It can't. It just 100% can't. In fact, I originally tried to use gasoline as fuel, but it doesn't work. I don't know if this was an error, or if this was something intentional that just wasn't added in or was removed at some point, because the amount of gasoline you get is way more than the amount of diesel that you get. Gasoline, in this case, is only used for making napalm, really. I was really confused at first, because it just wasn't running, and that's because I was using gasoline. Once I switched it to diesel, worked perfectly fine, and I also thought that the generator didn't stop, but it totally does, just 100% does. So that's some really weird stuff with the quest book there, if I gotta say, but there's the diesel generator running in its extremely loud glory, and it is filling up that capacitor bank quickly. Even though we have oil currently feeding our diesel supply, I may, at some point later down the line, switch over to biodiesel, simply because renewable fuels are better. That, or I might do canola oil, because that's also a very viable option. To actually route that power back to everything, I need HV wire relays, which takes insulated glass, and insulated glass takes slimy glass. Something really cool that I didn't realize until I was actually looking harder at the recipe is that you can make slimy glass just using lava. You don't need to make andesite magma at all. You can just use it with lava and slimy sand in a high oven, which is very nice. Insulated glass is easy beyond that. It takes a circuit board and some nihilo dust, and I need that to make the wire relays, and I also need it to make the wire connectors, actually. One thing that's weird, and I feel I may have mentioned this in an earlier episode, is that wires don't do contact damage in this mod pack, which is nice that I don't immediately blitz myself on it, but kind of strange. Watching the distillation tower run with a constant supply of RF is a beauty, I gotta say. It just produces diesel and gasoline like it's no one's business, and it has more trouble outputting it than it has with the actual production. And that is something that I love to see. And it doesn't even use too much power to do it. When it comes to producing diesel nowadays, I'm going to be entirely limited by the capacity of my pump jack, which I've let run for a few hours and built up 100,000 millibuckets, but quickly it won't last. With the new slimy glass recipe, it's now finally cheap enough for me to replace my wood compressor thingy with slimy glass instead of the regular glass, so it runs 3 times as fast, which is just kind of helpful, all things considered. I also replaced the fluid transfer node that was routing over the oil to being regular fluid conduits, which are still annoying, but much faster. Ignore the fact that I was one short. I was very infuriated by this. With that set up, the rest of my time was spent routing around the electricity so that we could actually have all that surplus of power come into our machines. Theoretically, I could technically be at potential risk of a power short where I'd like burn wires or whatever, but in all of my time playing immersive engineering, I've never had that happen to me, so I'm gonna ignore that as even being a possibility and kind of just move on with my life and be happy about the amount of power I have at my disposal. I still have some things connected to the LV wire connector, mainly just because I didn't have enough HV wire stuff. But largely, everything's kind of connected. It should be running much more consistently, and we shouldn't have any prospective power problems in the near future whatsoever. Which means we can kind of expand to doing more things with our power. Get more machines. There's a problem with that, though. For all intents and purposes, we're kind of done with immersive engineering. We have just about every multi-block you can make in it, so the only thing really left is moving on from immersive engineering, making the extra utilities 2 machine frame. I didn't think I was going to be getting it when I started this episode, but as I started looking at the recipe afterwards, I kind of realized that it is fully and completely within our grasp. And it's not even too expensive to do it. So let's put our pedal to the metal and let's get it. The thing is that as we start getting later into the pack, we're going to see that there are going to be a lot, and I do mean a lot, of different ways to make each of the individual components for a machine frame. So I'm really only going to focus on the one way that we can do right now, which is going to be focused on both efficiency and also just ease of access. For the extra utilities 2 machine frame, right now we're going to need a large supply of witch water, surprisingly. So I decided to set up this thing, which will automatically get me some. And I then, not too much later, expand it so that it's 3 times as fast. It occasionally backs up with water, so it's not perfectly efficient, but I don't need it to be perfectly efficient right now, and I can set up a much better system later. Right now, I just need a lot of witch water. I need to process that witch water through a distillation tower to have a small chance of getting black quartz. The other stuff you can get from it are ancient spores and pure water. Ancient spores are entirely useless, but pure water has vague uses later. We need to reassemble this crushed black quartz to get actual black quartz so that we can make a black quartz block with it. Black quartz block is going to later be used to make the power cores that we need. We're not quite able to make the power core yet though, so I focused on making vacuum tubes. Vacuum tubes take these glass holes, which we can make them in the smeltery with glass and steel, and they also take copper, zinc, wires, and then miscellaneous rods. I can't exactly remember it, it's kind of just a hodgepodge of components, and that's how a lot of these kind of micro crafts up to the machine casing are. They're a lot of, you know, small individual components that are just put together to get our final product, and will be made much easier once we can automate it. That vacuum tube we are going to not be using on its own. We are going to be using it to make an immersive engineering circuit using a copper plate and insulating glass. I also want to make a creosote frame. It allows me to make the machine frames a little bit more efficiently. You make it with a wither skeleton skull and some creosote, and we have creosote already, and I got a wither skeleton skull a while back just from the mob farm. Alright, big crafts time. We combine fire shards with glowstone to make glow shards, and we combine glow shards with zinc rods and a vacuum tube in order to make the first diodes. We can put gasoline and pulverized aluminum within an immersive engineering mixer in order to make napalm. We end up needing 12 pulverized aluminum because we need 2 buckets of napalm overall. This is because we need to make those unpowered powered cores with black quartz diodes and redstone wires, and then we need to throw them into napalm in order to power them up. As for other parts of the craft, we need 2 iron furnaces, we need 4 circuit plates, and then those 4 circuit plates, 1 circuit board, 2 invar plates, and 1 light engineering block, along with that 1 creosote frame, will get us 5 extra utilities machine frames. And I'll be honest, I didn't know until writing the script that that is what they are actually called, which is cool, bro, I guess. As mentioned, putting the inactive power cores into napalm gets us the activated power cores. And with that, that is actually everything we need for the extra utilities machine frame made. We got the power cores, we have the engineering block, we have the iron furnaces, and we have the frames. And there is our first 4 machine blocks. This gets us a new trophy, a new coin, and opens up so much more. Extra Utilities has a lot of options afterwards. We can head to the Erebus, we can head to many different places, and we also have access to research pretty soon here, which is really cool. I'm excited to see what Extra Utilities has to offer because I haven't really played the path beyond that point. And of course, that is not what we're going to tackle today. We have spent far enough time here. Diesel is going to be a quite potent addition to our repertoire and should alleviate any future potential power troubles we may run across for a decent while. For some less immediately alchemy-related material, as the semester rolls out again, I can't guarantee any consistency in uploads, as if I was consistent before. And I've been working on other projects as well, including my own mod pack, which just got a new update, link in the down there. In either case, whether new mod packs or old mod packs like this one, let's make sure to use the new paths that we've unlocked next time.